Hey friends, this is Jordan with O&Co Games. We're a small indie studio working on a story-rich precision platformer called Tethergeist. If you're into that kind of thing, you can play the demo and drop us a wishlist using the Steam link below. Anyway, we've had some crazy big things happening in our quaint little neck of the woods. We recently signed a pretty big contract with our friends at Almost Ready Games Fund, and we're currently in the process of selecting a marketing agency. But neither of those things are the topic of this video. In this one, I want to talk about Adrien, the super genius who we've recently hired to work on our sound effects. His credentials are off the charts. Like, if you've seen any of these PIXAR movies, you've heard his sound effects. But before I get too far into that, you might be thinking, wait, Jordan, I thought you were doing the sound effects for Tethergeist. Well, up until this point, yes, I have been making the sound effects, and honestly, I'm pretty happy with how they've turned out so far. I've actually had a lot of people comment on how much they like the sound effects, unsolicited. They're currently pretty sparse, but the sounds we do have are working pretty nicely. Anyway, with our timeline getting more and more squished, and with me being just one human being trying to code, design, make devlogs, and compose music for Tethergeist, while also holding a day job, my time is stretched pretty darn thin. So initially, we just wanted to find someone who could at least match what I would be able to do for sound effects, just to lighten my load. However, the person we found far exceeds my abilities. Adrien spent 6 years as a sound engineer at PIXAR, so seriously, I wasn't joking. It's very likely your ears specifically have heard his work. He has a deep well of knowledge and expertise in sound design, and working with him thus far has just been a dream. So how did we find this guy? Well, truthfully, quite a bit of luck was involved. Initially, Adrien had met Noah and Ray at the Lightbox Expo a couple of years back. For those of you who don't know, Lightbox is the ultimate gathering of artists who work in the entertainment industry, bringing your favorite films, animations, games, TV shows, and illustrations to life. At least that's what their website says. I've never been, but Noah and Ray obviously have, and they love it. So at the point that they met Adrien, though, we really only established a connection with him. We didn't necessarily plan on working with him, partially because at the time, we figured I could do the sound effects, and we're a scrappy little studio trying to keep costs low. Fast forward several months, and the Tethergeist Steam demo was featured on one of Thomas Brush's review videos, where he plays through indie games and provides his feedback and critique. Honestly, he had so many fabulous things to say about Tethergeist, so if you're curious, you can go check out that video. I'll link it below as well.
The graphics are freaking incredible. The game looks amazing. Everything is just solid.
Anyway, most of Thomas's suggestions in that video centered around sound design, which makes sense. From a sound effects perspective, we've really only implemented bare bones, so there's a lot of improvement to be made in that category. Well, besides our team, somebody else happened to be watching that video. Any guesses who? Adrien. Obviously, Adrien also happened to be watching Thomas's review of Tethergeist. So he reached out to us and offered to work on the sound design for us. Apparently, he'd been thinking about it for some time before, but watching that video really inspired him to reach out. The timing was pretty perfect because we were already starting to consider reaching out to sound engineers to lighten my workload. And ever since then, Adrien really has just been fabulous to work with. He immediately caught on to our vision and shares our level of passion and enthusiasm for Tethergeist. He had even started learning GameMaker before we ever started working together, and as luck would have it, he even went to the same university we all did. He actually played in the band that beat my band in Battle of the Bands years ago, but I'm happy to forgive him for that. Anyway, before we hired Adrien officially, Noah and I built a master list on a Google Sheet of all of the sound effects we plan to have in the game. We organized them by chapter and added some columns for us to leave notes for Adrien and to keep an update on each sound effect's status. We also prioritized the sounds by what we feel is mission critical to have in the game, labeled high priority, and the sounds that are more nice to have than need to have. We labeled those ones medium priority. I guess in hindsight we could have labeled them like need to have and nice to have, but at that time we thought we were going to have more than 2 priority levels. Once we had this list ready, we went over it with Adrien to get a feel from him for how much work it would take. Then we wrote up a good old-fashioned contract with a net revenue share model based on the amount of work he'd be doing in relation to all of the work that's gone into the full project. And with that contract ready to go, Adrien got to work. Since then, we've been meeting with him every 2 weeks to review the sound effects he's made. He also occasionally checks in with us on Discord just for clarifying questions. Each time we meet, the sounds he shows us are just always so good. He's not just making sound effects for the sake of finding something that fits either. He's also taking extra care to determine what kinds of emotions each sound is going to evoke and how it's going to fit into the greater soundscape of Tethergeist. And of course, he's got all of the gear and know-how to ensure each sound is of the highest quality. So while we haven't implemented his sounds into our public demo yet, I figured I might as well give you guys a sneak peek here in this video. Check out this ambient soundscape he made for the nighttime section of Chapter 1. And here's the soundscape we'll be using in Chapter 2. And try to guess what this sound is. Okay, anyway, we're just super excited to have Adrien on board. He's super passionate about using sound to tell a story, and we just couldn't be happier with where we're headed with Adrien. So that's about all I've got. If Tethergeist looks like your jam, we'd be honored to have you head over to Steam, play the demo, and wishlist it. And if you want to keep up on our progress, feel free to subscribe here on YouTube. We'll be releasing devlogs all the way up until this game launches. We love keeping you guys updated, and we're extremely grateful for all of your support along the way. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.